Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another live stream on the HVI podcast. And tonight I'm joined by Tjump and James Stevens Valiant. I'll have the link to Tjump's channel tagged in the description below and also in the pinned comment. And with that being said, just real quick before we continue, Tom and James, thank you both for joining me today.
Pleasure as always, Jacob.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right. IAH, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate it. Before we get started, let's do a little recap. Who exactly is Jay Dyer for the audience that may not be familiar with the situation? How would you describe him?
Nincompoop. Jay is a precept apologist who is a creationist science denier, and pretty dumb overall. He is very knowledgeable about philosophy or history, not philosophy, history. He has lots of facts about history, but not very knowledgeable about anything else in the world.
Yeah, I think he knows his Bible, but yeah, he claims to have a master's degree in philosophy. I'm not sure about that with personal knowledge, and listening to him, he is pretty pathetic trying to be a philosopher. I've seen him attempt to do that, but Nincompoop is pretty good summary. Yeah, he's a presuppositionalist Christian. He denies basic science like evolution, and he's an anti-Semite to boot, from what I've repeatedly now recently gotten a full ear of.
Yeah, what pulled me into this discussion is when I watched Professor Dave he made a couple of videos about Jay Dyer recently, and Jay got into a hissy fit about that. And the only response, apparently the best response that Jay Dyer had to Dave Farina is, well, let me just show it to y'all real quick.
For one, a couple months.
So I'm gonna skip some of that. Let me find the part. I know it's around here. Here it is. It's right around this area. There it is, right there. So let's play.
Anything is.
Talk about base pairing. Talk about codons. You can't do it because you don't know what this is. Cry about it. You don't know what molecular biology is.
You don't know what anything is. Well, you don't know.
Holy shit, man, you really put me in my place there. Hang on, that was such a profound rebuttal to basic principles of molecular biology that I don't think I was able to absorb it all the first time. Let's get that again.
You don't know what anything is. Well, you don't know.
Okay, I got it this time. All of molecular biology is wrong because you made a whiny cartoon voice. I've been teaching science incorrectly this entire time. Also, I could be wrong, but that started sounding pretty stereotypically Jewish at the end. Do you think this guy hates Jews? Does anyone want to tell him that I'm not Jewish or that racism is bad?
So you see how Jay Dyer acts right there firsthand. He just made a bunch of ridiculous noises, and that was the only response he had to Dave. And as Dave points out later in this video, and he points it out again in the one that he made after this one about Jay, is that he tries to turn everything that he doesn't understand into philosophy. He tries to turn science, molecular biology into he tries to turn evolution into philosophy when he doesn't understand the first thing about it. That way he can try to make it, he can try to equivocate it to his category, to what he believes, to what he knows specifically, to try to make it look like that he knows what he's talking about when he does not. And Tom, did you experience that kind of nonsense when you debated Jay? Did he try to turn situations that he clearly didn't know what he was talking about and try to equivocate with his position.
Well, he doesn't know anything other than just history facts, so he does that every time he speaks. But I don't actually see that as a big problem. Like trying to take any topic and convert it into something that you know. I mean, that's logical. Anybody can do that. The problem isn't converting facts into topics that you understand.
That's what I mean.
Him just being an idiot in general. So yeah, like I don't really care if he tries to do that. That's fine as long as he can make a good argument. He just can't make a good argument. That's the bigger issue.
So I want to take a look at the fake master's degree thing real quick. I'm gonna play this little clip right here.
Ignorant of philosophy, like literally
Well,
go
I have
to
a master's in
course.
philosophy.
Let me start that over.
Ignorant of philosophy, like literally
Well,
go
I
to
have a
any
master's in
course.
philosophy. You have no philosophy. I have a
Any
master's in
course.
philosophy. You have no philosophy.
I have a master's in philosophy. You have no philosophy.
Okay, yeah, but you come on and say that somebody doesn't know who philosophy who does have a degree, which you appeal to the experts before. So actually, if I have a master's, right, shouldn't I be in that class of the experts?
Oh hell no, you're dumb as shit.
I have a master's in philosophy. You have no philosophy.
I have a master's in philosophy. You have no philosophy.
If I have a master's,
This is one of the commentators pointed out that he's claiming to have a master's degree that does not exist. He never earned. Is what I mean. There is no master's degree that he has. And that's because he never wrote his thesis. He never finished his thesis. So he's a master's. He tries to say that he's a master's degree without a thesis, which means this is another way of saying you don't have a master's degree. But that's not the way he framed it in the debate. Even in your debate with him, he tries to make it look like he has one.
It's deeper than that because the school he went to doesn't have a philosophy degree. It has a religion degree. It's a religion degree.
God.
So
That's
he
even
has.
better.
He tried to
What
get a
school did
master's
you go
in. I forget what it's called. It started like an M or something, but it's a Christian diploma mill. So it's just one of those Christian colleges that hands out diplomas for garbage.
Murray State University.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
it's not a legitimate actual accredited degree. It's just kind of a junk degree. And it wasn't in philosophy. They don't offer a philosophy degree. He had like a minor in philosophy or something. It was like a linguistics degree or something, in English related. So, but honestly, I don't really care. I don't really care if he has a degree or not. It doesn't really matter if someone has a degree. What matters is the quality of their arguments. And Jay is dumb. But he was tactically correct in his approach in our debate to just speak and yell the entire time so that I couldn't make a coherent argument, because obviously he knew I would just destroy him on anything he said. So he just had to yell. So props to him for making a good debate tactical decision to just scream the whole time so I couldn't make an argument.
Well, he was insulting, he was rude, he was full of ad hominems, but he wouldn't let you complete a sentence. He wouldn't let you put two sentences together. It was not much of a debate in terms of learning, but I suppose if you want to impress people who already agree with you and not let the other guy, get a word in edgewise, that was a tactically smart thing to do, because you would have cleaned his clock from what little I was able to gather from your position. You were already cleaning his clock, even with the half sentences you were permitted to get out before he hit you with a barrage of insults. So that's the sign of someone who's not terribly secure in their position, for one thing. And two, not someone who's interested in engagement on ideas. And when you consider what his ideas are, you can see why he would do that. Again, not just in that debate that he had with Tjump, but I put debate in quotes on that, but in life in general, and his basic approach to figuring stuff out and engaging with people. You have to have a good, like Tom says, you have to have a good argument. I mean, that's the first thing, and he doesn't have a good argument. So, you couldn't allow that kind of space to allow an engagement, because it would expose him for being the nincompoop, as Tom puts it, that he is. I mean, presuppositionalism. I mean, it's talk about misuse of philosophy. Talk about, just for the record, I have an undergraduate degree from New York University in philosophy, graduated magna cum laude. I completed an honors thesis there, but I know it's only an undergrad degree. I did go on to graduate school and get my JD, but the point is, at least I went to a legitimate place, and studied from legitimate people. But in any case, he plays games with philosophy. He plays the worst kind of rationalizing games with philosophy. Philosophy as a topic only comes up when we're adults and we have a whole bunch of knowledge already built up, if you will, a whole bunch of beliefs already built up. And what we have to do retrospectively is sort of look back and say, how did I get here? What does my knowledge presuppose? And so much of philosophy is trying to reverse engineer what our knowledge presupposes and how we, in effect, got here, knowing what we do or believing what we do. So what he does is he takes tricks from philosophy and then uses all kinds of fallacies. Knowledge has to begin somewhere. And I believe it begins with the evidence of the senses, with sense perception. And so broadly speaking, I belong in the Aristotelian, empiricist school that says sense perception is the ground of all knowledge. He doesn't begin knowledge with that. He begins it with a little logical game playing or illogical game playing, a little trick called a transcendental argument in which you can smuggle in his proposition about God and his belief in the Bible. And anyone could do that with anything. Anyone could do that with any higher level concept, whether it's God or the truth of the Bible. Anyone could play his transcendental game, which is totally sophistry. He cites Plato, who did argue that, you have to already kind of have the form before you can even identify the thing you're seeing. I reject that. I reject that on the same basic grounds that Aristotle rejected that. I think we can form concepts from observation, basic ones, and from those basic first level concepts, we can move up a chain of abstraction. So I don't play games. I don't pretend, for example, that I can prove the presuppositions of proof, right? The logic itself has certain presuppositions, like the law of non-contradiction. Again, as Aristotle explained so well, more than 3,300 years ago. But he believed it was a basic observational thing. Go look, see, non-contradiction. If a man goes to Megara, why does a man go to Megara? If he wants to go to Megara, he doesn't head to Corinth or Thebes, cities in ancient Greece. He heads to Megara. Everyone acts like it. The law of non-contradiction applies. Non-contradiction is a universally observable truth. And so while the law of non-contradiction is a presupposition for the rest of the rules of logic, and Aristotle pretty much gave us the basic rules of deductive logic, so he's using philosophy like a game. Now, I'm not saying he's alone in doing it, but he's particularly shallow and empty in doing it. But whether it's Christianity or God or anything else, that kind of transcendental argument is simply game playing. And it gives a bad name to philosophy as such. But he'll throw out fancy words like epistemology as if he knows what the hell he's talking about, when it is really just a mental game that he's playing with himself. He doesn't start with the evidence of the senses. He starts with, what are the presuppositions of logic based on my current presuppositions about God and the Bible? And of course, that's the classic fallacy. That's the fallacious use of circular argumentation. To smuggle in your conclusion by means of a logical, game. But as I say, it would be equally valid if I was to argue for a pantheon of gods and the truth of Homer's Iliad. You cannot know anything, you cannot have ethics unless you've read Homer's Iliad and you believe in the Greek pantheon of gods. It would be just as valid as the kind of crap that comes out of his mouth as a presuppositionalist. And of course, his fundamentalist Christian beliefs, in effect, inform his ignorance about science. I mean, we didn't need molecular biology to have Darwin and Wallace make some pretty basic observations. They were pretty, persuasive to my way of thinking about what the origin of the differences and similarities between living organisms on Earth is all about and where it comes from. Molecular biology has demonstrated this all the way down to molecules. And so all this guy can do is ridicule science that, contradicts what he actually already believes. And to go further, and my final point is, he's just a bigot. He's a nasty person who'll engage in personal attacks. He showed that in his debate with, Tom, what was it, 3 years ago? He's shown that repeatedly again and again, but he's more than just a mean, nasty, unpleasant individual. He is actually a bigot. And so I guess that's what I wanted to say in response to this guy. He's a worthless piece of crap. And please don't waste your time with him.
I actually partially disagree with some of what you said. So I don't think the tag argument is sophistry, and I don't think it's inherently circular. I think like saying logic exists, and so whatever the preconditions of logic must be logically or necessary for logic to exist. I think it's perfectly sensible, and I think that the way that they do it is very intelligent in saying that it must be something that's intelligent, universal, et cetera, because those are things that we assume are true about logic. So I wouldn't say that the tag argument in and of itself is sophistry or circular. I think it becomes that way because of a lot of the additions that they add to it, but I don't think the approach of presuppositionalism is inherently illogical or stupid.
See, I do. I think that's sheer rationalization, and it's the kind of games that the school of rationalists got into, the problems they got into, whether it was Descartes or particularly Leibniz. I think you have to start with reality and observation, and if you can't ground even the premises of logic in observation and reality, then we have a problem, Houston. But that I think that there are valid philosophical. Let me put it this way: I can see why people would. I have no problem with your disagreement with me in that sense, Tom, because I think there are rationalists, as I might call it, who will use those kind of games. I think they're games because philosophy for me is how I know and cope with reality, and it's only a value to me insofar as it will and do that. Philosophy for me is not some kind of abstract chess game. And this is bad chess, by the way. But in any event, it's not some kind of chess game. And sometimes the chess games are elegant. I'll give you that. One can engage in a very elegant chess game when you're disconnected like that. But for me, philosophy is a vitally important topic. It tells me how I know and the correct approach to values. So to me, epistemology and ethics aren't games that you could get away with this kind of, chess game approach to, in my view.
I don't think what they're doing is any fundamentally different than any philosopher, essentially. It's just taking ideas and finding patterns to solve problems we don't have answers to. I wouldn't say precepts or the tag or Descartes are rationalists. I'm not a rationalist. I think that empiricism is a more justified grounds of knowledge. But I wouldn't say that what they're doing is in any way sophistry or illogical or unreasonable. Jay is an idiot, 100%. But the argument that he's using is a very well thought out argument from other thinkers that aren't him. And rationalism is very well thought out ideology, even if it's wrong. And so I wouldn't call any of those games in any sense that they are less valid than any other field of philosophy.
Well, I ground validity in reality and observation itself. So I think
But why does that mean that the others are irrational? Just because you disagree doesn't mean that they're irrational or that it's a game.
Oh, well, I believe that reason is by its nature the integration of the material provided by sense perception. So I approach philosophy in a radically different way than the rationalists. And so, Leibniz's consideration of possible worlds is to me just a consideration of arbitrary possibilities. But then again, so is Descartes' methodology of doubting everything to find the thing he's certain of. I think that's, again, playing with arbitrary possibilities. Possibility for me needs to be proved, demonstrated. Even possibility needs to be proved or demonstrated. But as wrong as though Descartes and Leibniz may have been from my perspective, they are geniuses of the ages, and they are not to be compared with this Dyer guy who's really stealing elements of their approach to his own really messed up ends. It is rationalization in his hands. When you're trying to prove God and the Bible by playing these kind of, quote, logical games, you're lost already, in my view.
again, I think that's too strong of an approach. That makes your position too stringent and self-defeating in a lot of ways. So I think that rationalism is a perfectly
how it's self-defeating.
because you don't start with your sense experience. Your sense experience is interpreted by your brain, and even if someone has no sense experience, they can still know things via thoughts, a priori knowledge. So we don't start with our sense experience. Sense experience is secondary.
Reject a priori altogether. I reject the analytic synthetic dichotomy. I reject the a priori a posteriori dichotomy. I reject the necessary contingent dichotomy.
Okay, well, so can people with no sense experience have thoughts?
No.
That's just false.
They have to have sense. They have to have some contact with reality, whether they're Helen Keller, great example. Helen Keller was reduced in what input she had, and all they had was touch. But the climactic moment of that wonderful play, The Miracle Worker, it's a really epistemological play, if you think about it, because the climax comes when her teacher says she knows she got through water as a concept, not just an associative symbol, but she even needed her hand to do that. She needed the sense of touch and smell, or she could not have formed concepts at all. And that's
just false. So
we
scientifically know that is 100% false.
Scientifically demonstrable without contact.
Well, let's get back.
You're doing the Jay Dyer thing, so that's just wrong. We know for a fact the brain works even if there's no sense data. You can completely destroy the sense data parts of the brain, so there's absolutely no access to the external world whatsoever.
One example.
But you still have thoughts.
One example.
Comas. People can be in comas and still have dreams.
Did they have a bunch of sense experience before the coma?
No, they could be born in a coma and still have brain data.
Born in a coma and they have brain activity. Yep. I would not say we could call any of that thought or logic or anything else. If they were truly born,
because then they can come out of the coma.
Hold on.
So again, this is a
getting.
thing.
I think we're also getting off topic.
Yeah, we kind of are.
Let's let me play a clip from because I wanted to play a couple of clips real quick.
Important kill stream history.
I want to interrupt you.
So put together. Okay.
Hold on a second.
Yes.
Forever.
Jay Dyer and Tom already.
Kinds of presuppositions or preconditions that are necessary and have to be the case for those knowledge claims to be possible. So I'm not talking about any specific knowledge claim in this case. I'm talking about a higher level, a meta level claim about the possibility of knowledge claims. So these preconditions are things like universals, abstract concepts, the status of objects, or the identity of objects over time, the principle of induction, the external world having a reality to it that's not just simply mental, that there is a self that underlies all of our perceptions. All of these things are not reducible to matter. They're not, in other words, it would lead to an absurdity reductio to reduce all of these preconditions to matter. And so therefore they do have some ontological existence, some real existence. And so the only possible way to explain how all of those interlock or cohere, numbers, laws of logic, the things I listed, is if there is a God who grounds them and is the justification for those things. So basically I'm saying that there are transcendental categories or preconditions, and the argument for God's existence is that he is the only possible justification or ground for those things. So that is the transcendental argument.
Mr. Jump, would you like to respond to that, or?
Yeah, sure. So just to clarify, so you're saying that all of the experts in all of those fields who wrote the books on literally all of those topics that you mentioned, they're all wrong. All of their worldviews, majority of which are atheist, non-religious people, they have some logical contradiction in their worldview.
That's completely irrelevant to a formal argument. You're appealing to authority.
It's just a question. So no, it's not actually what I'm doing at all.
Well, there are plenty of authority. There are plenty of authority.
Stop.
I want to stop it here for a second. So I find it interesting that he keeps telling Tom that he's committing the argument from authority fallacy when he's not. And later on, as I played earlier, he then tries to use his fake master's degree that he never had to argue that he's the authority, so that Tom should be listening to him. He tries to reverse the situation. So he therefore commits the same argument from authority fallacy that he's accusing Tom of, also based on a lie, by stating that he has a master's degree that he doesn't have.
Oh, I would disagree there. So in the The first part is, yeah, you're right. He's trying to say I'm using an argument from authority, and I'm not. That's just simply a question in order to provide context. So he's making a claim that knowledge is only possible with his God, which would necessarily imply that all people who ground knowledge outside of his God must be illogical. But in his later argument that he has a master's degree, he was doing like an internal critique, his normal thing of like, in my worldview, if I accept authorities, he has a degree, therefore I should accept his authority. He wasn't using argument from authority from his perspective. He was just saying that if I accept authorities, he has a degree, he's an authority. So it wouldn't be self-contradictory for him to say that. That is not a self-contradictory argument.
Yeah, if he was just responding rhetorically, saying, "Look, you did it, and so if by your logic, this would be okay if I did it." He does it more rankly later, though, in the debate when he says no one would agree with him. And it's, first of all, not true, obviously, but even in its own terms, whether factually true or not, he's doing an ad populum fallacy right off the bat, the kind of thing that he was so keen that Tom not do.
Yeah.
And there he was doing it substantively, you see, in the truly fallacious way.
The next clip I'm going to play is at 39 minutes, 10 seconds. I think this will be the last one I play.
Oh, God,
If
I'm
the
loving it.
premise is true, the conclusion is necessarily true.
All right.
Right, yes. What is the first premise?
That's
Jay?
because that's called a disjunctive argument, though.
All right, you know what?
This.
Tom-
You just admitted that this is valid. Thank you.
If the premises are true, then the conclusion follows. So, Jay, that means it has to have premises, right?
Right.
So what's the first premise?
Do you understand? I'm showing you the form.
Wait, Jay, what is the first premise?
I'm showing you the form
No,
of
I
the
don't care what
argument
the
before
form is.
I
I
make
want to know
the
what the first
argument.
premise is. I'm asking you what
Do
is
you
the first
understand
premise?
that the argument is different from the form?
Jay,
You don't
Jay,
even you
I'm
can't.
not
This guy
interested in
can't
the
even
form.
grasp.
I just
the
want to know what the
form
first premise is.
of arguments are
Yeah,
different from actual
I don't care what
arguments.
the form is. I want to know
So
what the first premise is.
when I made the argument at the beginning,
I'm
it was
still-
this.
I'm still waiting for the first premise. Like, I want to know what the first premise is. You said it's
Do you
valid.
remember okay, I'll give it to you again. Do you remember the argument I made at the beginning?
No.
You don't remember it.
No, how can I possibly remember that gibberish?
All right.
No.
Well, tell us again, Jay, and then I'll let him respond for 2 minutes. I'll read the super chats and we'll take calls. Go ahead.
God is the necessary condition of all knowledge claims. We
What's
have
the-
knowledge
wait,
claims.
I'm
therefore
writing
God.
it down. Wait, go slower. I'm trying to write this down. So what is the first premise?
The argument is simply put is that God is the necessary precondition or condition of all knowledge claims. I would extend it to say ethics, metaphysics, and epistemology.
Wait, that's the first premise?
Yes. Like how many times you don't know what a disjunctive argument is? This is really simple, dude.
So like the first premise is like Socrates is a man. That's a premise.
Yeah, this you just did when I asked you if there's if the premise and then there's a conclusion. This is the premise. This is the conclusion. It's called a disjunctive argument. Okay, it's a valid form of argument. This is just the form.
What's
The
second
argument
premise?
that I
don't care
make.
about the form. What are the premises?
You're having to learn class because you don't know what you're
No,
talking
you have it.
You don't know
I know
basic logic. You
I
came
know
to this
philosophy.
debate with
You don't.
nothing
So,
but pure arrogance.
Jay, I know philosophy. You don't. So
No,
tell me.
I want to pause there real quick before I finish playing this part of it. It's hilarious to me how he's trying to shift and he's accusing you, Tom, of being arrogant when isn't Jay himself coming off as quite arrogant, constantly interrupting all the time, and with the way he's handling this.
Oh yeah, he's the idea that I'm asking him to provide his argument, which is his worldview. I'm asking him to present his worldview, but instead of presenting his worldview, he is trying to be confrontational and derogatory instead of actually presenting the argument when the person you're in a debate with asks you to present the argument. It just shows he's just a moron. Like literally, I'm just asking him to give the thing he's there to give, and he's like, "No, I'm going to be a dick." Sounds like much better argument.
Yeah, there's not much to say there. Then for the record, if people don't want to go through the better part of an hour and a half of this debate, this is actually one of the better moments. Get this. This is actually one of the more coherent moments in that blood sports debate because there's actually something being elicited that was, gives you some idea of what the guy actually argues, however absurd it obviously is.
I'm gonna hit resume real quick.
You don't. You didn't know what this was. You just asked me to explain this
Now,
to
to
you.
be fair, he does have a degree. I mean, I don't know. Degrees don't mean everything, but
Are you kidding me? No, he's dumb
right,
as shit.
okay,
So
all right.
what are the premises?
Dude, all you do is insult. All
That's-
you've done is
that's okay,
insult
that's okay, dude. What are
constantly because you don't know basic
Jay,
philosophical
premises.
concepts and
Jay,
arguments.
premises. Tell me the premises.
The
So you got that
premises,
first one.
I've told you 5 times what the premises is. God is the necessary condition of knowledge.
One.
Knowledge, therefore God.
That's
It's a simple argument.
Then anybody can use any god and say Shiva, therefore knowledge, Vishnu, for Purin, any god you can possibly imagine.
It doesn't even have to be a god.
So even if somebody believes in a god, how do you know by which mechanism can I determine which god, therefore knowledge?
Well, that would just be a part of his argument. So he doesn't state every part of the premise there. The way he defines God is the Christian God. Anything that's not the Christian God isn't God. So when he says
That's my point.
God is the necessary precondition, he means the Christian God. He just didn't say it in that many words. And so it wouldn't be fair to say that via the argument he presented that would justify any God, because it wouldn't from his perspective. That would be a straw man of his argument. You could
No.
say that based on the logic in his argument, there's no way to differentiate other gods effectively, and that could work.
That's obviously what we're
That's
saying.
what I meant.
Yeah.
That's literally what I meant.
Oh God. Okay. Wow. Oh man, I need to ask you something here. It's really hilarious. So the first premise is God is the necessary precondition of knowledge.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
for the
Okay.
20th time, yes.
And the second is therefore God.
No, the second is knowledge. Therefore, he can't even follow the dude.
What-
Do you want
what's
me
the
to?
second
Do you
one?
want
What is the second
to?
one?
Do
You
you
didn't
want
give
to
me
do
the
your
second one. What's the second
ABCs
one?
with this? God is the necessary precondition or condition of knowledge claims or propositions. Right? We
Yes.
can insert into transcendental categories here.
Okay.
Knowledge claims or transcendental categories. Therefore, God.
Knowledge claims. The second premise
He
is
can't
knowledge.
even follow it. Dude, maybe you should go learn the transcendental
No, go
argument
back,
before you
go
come
back,
to
go
debate
back.
because you're having to learn it here.
So
and act
what's
like
the
a
second
jerk.
premise again? What's the second premise again? It said knowledge claims or something.
No, I'm done with that because he doesn't get it. I made the argument.
right.
Maybe
So what's funny here is that for it to be a second premise, it has to be like knowledge exists. So God is the precondition for knowledge. Knowledge exists, therefore God. That would be the full argument. But Jay doesn't know how to say an argument. He's not doesn't have a basic knowledge of philosophy. So he just kind of skips over the stages and kind of muddles it all together and doesn't understand why it's wrong. But when I asked for what is the second premise, what I'm looking for is knowledge exists. That would have been the second premise. He never said that. He said knowledge or knowledge, therefore God.
And later on, you asked for clarification. What do you mean by the second premise? And you mean any knowledge? You were trying to pin him down on that. And he said both. He said any knowledge. So later on in the discussion, he actually did pin himself down. And again, this section here in the middle of it really is the clearest and the most substantive in the discussion. But later on, you did try to pin him down on what you mean. Any knowledge? And he went for it. He said, yeah, any knowledge.
Yeah, that's all precepts will agree to that. And the only way any knowledge is possible is if God exists. And the reason I specifically brought that up is because of lucky knowledge. In philosophy, lucky knowledge is like a defeater for justified true beliefs. Like if you look at a clock and the clock says it's noon, the clock could be broken, but if it also happens to be noon at the time you woke up and looked at it, you would have a justified true belief that it's noon, but your method is a broken clock, so it wouldn't be justified. This lucky knowledge. And if lucky knowledge is possible, that makes making knowledge claims very, very easy. Because if you have a belief that I exist, the Cartesian circle, the Cartesian argument, that cogito ergo sum, and even if logic isn't true fundamentally, even if there's no universal logic, and it just happens to be that you have this belief, you would have knowledge, and it would be justified. And so that would be possible in a world where there was no universal logic, which would defeat his argument that you need universals for God. So there's a line of argumentation behind that question that I was going at. Of course, Jay just screamed all the time, so he never actually got to explore that like I do with other precepts who are not as screamy. But that's the main point of asking that. Well, what kind of knowledge? You mean any kind of knowledge? Because any kind of knowledge, I just to give you one logically possible world with no God and knowledge, your worldview is defeated. It's the minimum variable knowledge argument, essentially.
Maybe you
I
can go
don't
back
get
and
it.
hear
That's
the
not a
argument
valid
over
argument,
the
Jay.
first
What you
10
presented was
minutes.
not a valid argument.
It is a valid argument. Now,
Dumbass.
you might. It's the
Like, you
form
can-
is valid.
We can get Alex
The
Malpass on
form
here.
is valid. You might not. You might not.
No, it's not, Jay.
Hold on. You might not
No, it's
accept
not.
my version, but the
Oh,
form is
God. So-
valid. You didn't even
so-
know that. You didn't even know that the form is different from the
I don't-
instantiation.
I still want to know what the second premise is because I'm not clear on that one.
We have knowledge claims, therefore God.
We have knowledge claims. We have knowledge claims.
Z is the necessary condition of A, right? I'm putting God as
That's better.
the
That's better.
necessary
We're
precondition of knowledge claims. We have
So-
knowledge claims, A, therefore God.
Okay, we're getting there. That's better. Thank you. That is much better. So
That's the 20th time I explained it to you. You just don't understand it.
I can go back and just show you the words. You never said those words before. So, we
You
got
just
God.
lied. You just
God is-
lied. I said it 5 times.
Yeah, God is the
We
necessary.
have knowledge,
Alright.
therefore God.
All right, now let me
How many times did I say that?
go ahead.
You said the first one.
This
a
guy's
number of times.
totally
I just didn't
dishonest.
realize that was.
Like,
You
how
didn't say
can
the
you
second one.
debate if you're going to be totally dishonest?
So
Like you're
God-
lying to yourself
Jay, I'm
and
trying
to
Jay,
me, to my face.
Jay,
I said
Jay,
this
go
5
back.
times.
Go back. So God is the necessary preconditions of knowledge claims or propositions. We have knowledge claims and propositions, therefore God. So are you claiming that you need God to have propositions or you need God for knowledge to exist? Like, for example,
A precondition, God is the precondition for preconditions, is my argument.
okay.
Right.
So my question is do you need God to have a coherent knowledge base or do you need God to have knowledge at all? So like, for example,
Both.
I can both.
I would argue both.
James, I think that might be the moment you were talking about
That is
earlier.
the moment I was talking about. But what he said earlier was just not true. He claimed that from the beginning of the debate that he'd been clear about that when he absolutely had not. We hadn't even gotten to his second. We frankly hadn't even gotten his argument at the beginning. But Tom was correct about pointing out that that was really the first time we were pinning him down on his second premise, which of course doesn't get him there. But that's of course why Tom was nobly trying to pin him down on it, because by stating your argument out loud, people can already see the, holes. It's a Swiss cheese filled with all kinds of holes. So.
Yeah, like I love how I'm trying to make progress in the debate by asking like the most basic questions, and it takes us 5 minutes of him just gibberishing on about nothingness because he just doesn't want to answer questions about his worldview because he knows I'm going to destroy it.
I think that's true, and mind you, this is this is like 50 minutes into the discussion that we're finally
44 minutes to be exact. But
I mean, look how quickly you got my position from me and Tom's position of him from him in our discussion and our difference about philosophy. This took 50 minutes just to get this guy to articulate a coherent position. Well, it's not fully coherent, but to actually articulate his argument.
Coherent sentence.
A coherent sentence about what his argument is, I think would be the best way of putting it. Yeah.
I actually like that. The more I think about it, I actually like that y'all had had some disagreement and it got a little. Y'all had a little debate earlier because it shows what a good debate actually looks like. It gives you a glimpse at a cordial discussion when what's happening in that debate there between Jay and Tom is just mumbo jumbo because Jay just keeps going all over the place and can't even put a sentence together properly. It takes 44 minutes to explain his position.
Yeah, people can have reasonable disagreements and differences in philosophy.
Right.
But good Lord, man, the way he was going about it, the first 50 minutes was just uninterrupted interruption. It was a complete stoppage of Tom's ability to say a complete sentence, much less put 2 sentences together. When I see your videos on History Valley, Jacob, you provide the exact opposite of what's this discussion was all about. You let the thinker explain his or her position and develop it at length. You guide them into the questions that you're curious about, but only after allowing them to fully explore the reason why they take the position they do, give you their basic argument and evidence. So if you want to hear someone's position, listen to History Valley and you'll get a fair understanding of that thinker's ideas. listening to this, if a debate is supposed to clarify things, help people in their own mind think about things, this was the very opposite of that. But what we just heard here, ladies and gentlemen, this was the most substantive bit of it. It really was, because otherwise, Dyer was absolutely not going to allow Tom to say a single thing.
Both okay. So we can go with that one. Why do you think you need God to have knowledge? Like, I think, therefore I am. I don't presuppose God. I have knowledge.
Because the denial of any of the preconditions for knowledge leads to the impossibility of knowledge.
I don't care about any of the preconditions, because those are your made up preconditions.
That's my
You don't need
argument.
them. So I have
My
knowledge.
argument necessitates preconditions for knowledge, transcendental
Okay.
categories.
Okay. So I think, therefore I am. There are no preconditions to that other than my experience.
Absolutely, yes, there are. You just showed again basic
What?
misunderstanding of philosophy.
What are the
Even
preconditions?
Bertrand Russell refuted Descartes' cogito.
No, I
I
didn't.
think,
No,
therefore
what
I am
is-
assumes a
Go ahead,
self-thinking
refute
self. It
that,
assumes
refute
that
it.
words have meaning. It assumes sentences having
Nope.
grammatical structure like
Nope.
subjects and predicates. That's all assumed. And so you have a philosophy 101 understanding, and you thought that
Okay,
you
can I get my
thought that
clearance
didn't
now?
include preconditions, and it does.
Can I get my 2 minutes? No, so it doesn't. So I think, therefore I
I
am.
just showed you that it does.
You
It
gotta let
assumes
me-
a
Jay,
self.
can I
It
get my 2 minutes?
assumes sentences have
Can I get my
meaning.
2 minutes? Can I get my 2 minutes? So-
Descartes' phrase
can I get
assumes
my
that
2 minutes?
All right,
sentences
let
have
him-
meaning. Let's go back to
You gotta
philosophy
have my
101
2
class.
minutes here, so I got to correct all his mistakes. So it's probably a lot more than 2
I'm not
minutes.
making a mistake.
So
Have
can
you read Bertrand Russell?
minutes?
He would inform you
Yes, I
that
have.
it's a
But
non
no,
sequitur.
No, I didn't. So again,
It's
you
a
don't
non
know-
sequitur. Yes, it
Can
is.
I-
All modern philosophers will
2 minutes.
laugh at you and
I need
tell
my
you
2
that
minutes.
Descartes'
Ralph,
cogito is a
Ralph.
non sequitur.
All
Ralph,
right, let him
come on.
speak.
See, this is just so stupid how he just doesn't shut up and prevents me from actually addressing the argument. Like, there's many different versions of the cogito and its different implications, and many of the more popular versions specifically say it's a representation of sense of the direct conscious experience. So the words themselves are irrelevant to the argument. The words themselves don't matter. It's simply just saying that there is this thing, which is the direct sense experience, which is a physical object like a rock, and this thing exists. Now, the words that are used to frame it into premises and a conclusion aren't relevant to the factors of the argument, which is the existing object of the sense experience. So you
Right.
don't need to presuppose any of the English or any of the logical
Right.
relations of the words for the argument to hold, because it's not about the language. The language is a description of the object, which is covered. I think it's in the wiki or the SEP page on the cogito, where it specifically explains this, like in detail, that many versions of the argument have nothing to do with the linguistic structure at all, and so addressing the linguistic structure is just a red herring, and Jay just doesn't know that. He's just irrelevant. This is just a copy paste presup response to the cogito when none of them have actually done any research in the topic whatsoever.
Right. Right. I mean, to understand, for whatever its truth or falsehood, you to understand Descartes, all you need to understand is, I mean, you can rephrase it. I experience consciousness, therefore I am, therefore I exist. It isn't the question of the words used there. He's pointing to the actual experience of consciousness that people have, and he's using that to infer his existence. His bottom line argument there. Now, I disagree with that basic approach, as I say, but the way this guy's going about it is no sensible critique of Descartes at all. And Tom is trying to point out, look, no, consciousness, thinking, whatever, however you want to put it, awareness, any other synonym you want to put, or a combination of words that make that synonym would have been just as valid. But see, that's part of what I originally was saying. I have to, I'm afraid, in my worldview, I have to break it down to reality, to that experience. And so I believe in consciousness because I have that experience, not because of some logical derivation of it. And at some point, logic is the demonstration of new knowledge from previous knowledge, or an application of something, deduction, or a generalization if it's inductive logic. But you have to start somewhere, as I say. And this guy starts with his transcendental premises about God and knowledge. God must be the presupposition for everything else, and knowledge, any knowledge, I guess he pinned him down in saying, since we have some knowledge of some kind, therefore there must be some a God. I think that's rationalization. That's not demonstration, and it's certainly not comparing your ideas to reality in any way.
I'm going to play one more part of it, and then we'll be done watching those segments. We'll start here.
God doesn't need to make an argument. Literally, your IQ, like I can't even.
How does God justify knowledge?
There's no point in arguing the transcendental argument with you because I don't think you're physically and mentally capable of understanding the argument. So you're going to have to go to do other kinds of arguments because this is never. You're never going to get this.
I'll get my 2 minutes. So God is the necessary precondition of all knowledge.
You said, does God have to prove himself? Like it has nothing to do. Does God have to argue his own
Jay, shut up. Jay,
that has
shut
nothing
up.
to do with my argument. I gave you formal arguments. I gave you formal arguments.
Can I get my like 2 minutes?
You responded with no one agrees with you.
Go ahead.
No one agrees with you.
Ralph.
Go ahead. Say what you want. Give him 2 minutes. Go ahead.
That's
and then
not an argument.
Just let him say what he wants, and we'll take callers, and then we'll finish this up. Go ahead.
All right. So his argument was that God is the necessary precondition of knowledge claims. That's the first premise of his transcendental argument. And he says the way God grounds knowledge is through the argument, but the argument assumes God is the necessary precondition is one of the premises.
Correct.
So his argument is viciously circular. That is literally the definition.
Yeah, I believe in circular arguments.
What? Okay.
I believe in circular arguments at a paradigm level. So these kind
I just have to pause there for a second.
Grab that bull by the horns there, Dyer.
At least he's admitting it right there.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. It's like, I'm just going to admit that I believe just arguments are just fundamentally circular on the paradigm level. Therefore, it's fine if my argument is viciously circular. It's a very, very dumb thing to say, but okay.
Right. But I mean, it's the way so many people try to rationalize and smuggle in, right, the premise they're trying to demonstrate. This is a classic means of doing that. But you notice this is also an example of him using a fallacious argument about what other people believe. He was talking about arguments from authority before. Now he's saying literally no one would agree with you, man. And he's using that as substance. Well, there is a classic, and there we have an improper use of, someone else believes it, therefore used it fallaciously. So he can complain about, what wasn't there in the beginning, Tom's alleged use of an argument, fallacious use of an argument of authority. But here he is again and again and again and again saying, well, no one would agree with you, and ... That's, I would say to him, that's not a proof of anything either. I mean, if what you're saying is true, we shouldn't appeal to anyone, authority, ad hominem, ad populum, take a poll. Well, he does it constantly.
That brings me back to my point earlier, because that's really what I meant to say, is that he tries to shift it by saying, because he accused Tom of committing the argument from authority fallacy earlier, but now he tries to shift and say, well, a bunch of people believe this, therefore that. Then why would you accuse someone else of committing similar fallacies, and then you just do it yourself?
And at the risk of doing what he would accuse me of doing, as Tom did, I think if you actually went and asked people with PhDs in philosophy, more of them would agree with Tom, or at least Tom's position on this point, than Dyer here on this point. So I'm not saying that determines the truth or falsehood of anyone's argument, but I am saying it is some reason to believe that when this guy fallaciously uses that kind of thing, someone else believes it therefore, or someone doesn't believe it therefore. He's really he's adding insult to injury on top of everything else. What can I say?
Of arguments, they require
Now wait. Now, to be fair, you accuse him of a circular argument, and like it was a bad thing, and that is usually something that's said. Now, why would you say it's not, Jay?
That's why we brought this out. So if we're making arguments like this, where we're making distributive, attributive claims,
pause it right there. Pause it. Oh my God. So if you look at that argument, that is the dumbest thing. X is Y. All X are Y. And then Z is the necessary precondition of A. A is Z. That isn't a valid argument. That the premises do not lead to the conclusion. There is no Z or A in any of the premises.
Right.
There's no X or Y in the thing at the bottom. That is not a valid argument.
It is not.
There is no part of that that is a valid argument. That is just
No.
Jay doesn't understand
No.
what a valid argument is.
No, there is nothing. The fact,
Like
Aristotle
to show
is
you
spinning his
how
grave
easy
here.
it would have been. All you have to do is X is Y, Y exists,
Right.
X exists. That's
Right.
that would have been a valid argument. That would have been good.
Nothing to do with the. That is a totally invalid deductive or syllogistic argument. There's no question about it. Just on the form of it, as we say, this is not a valid argument. Absolutely
However, at
correct.
the
It's like he
paradigm level,
skipped.
It's
like he skipped
impossible to not be
logic in his
circular. That's
philosophy.
the
Getting
point.
his
I
philosophy.
believe the transitive argument is an argument about circularity.
In philosophy, that's called a tautology, which
No, it's not.
thing I
No,
mentioned
it's
earlier.
not.
That's literally
No,
what
it's
it
not.
is.
It's totally different.
Literally
A
what it
transcendental
is.
argument
But
is not a
That's
tautology.
literally
A
Now, wait.
transcendental argument is not a tautology.
Explain
That
why
is
it's not.
tautology,
Explain why
dummy.
it's not. Why is it not a tautology?
Tautology is just a restatement of the thing itself, right? Restating
No,
what you
that is-
just
that
said.
is
Yes,
not
it
what it
is.
is.
It's restating what you just said. That's
No,
not an
that's-
argument.
that's-
This is a
that's the definition
disjunctive,
on
which you didn't
Google.
know what that was.
What's a
That's an
transcendental?
argument.
What is
You didn't even know that the
tautology?
cogito
What's-
is an
what's a
argument.
tautology?
You're like, it's just a state of
Jay,
affairs.
Jay, what's a tautology?
It's just
Logic.
restating.
In logic, what is a tautology?
It's restating.
Nope, that's not what a tautology is in logic. What's a tautology? A tautology in a logical argument is an argument that is framed in a way that you can't deny it without it causing a contradiction or an inconsistency. That's what it means. It's not a restatement is like a tautology in common English.
Right. Nor is he, when he says he's accusing you of saying Descartes wasn't making an argument. No, you were just pointing out that his first premise, I think, is an experience, is actually mapped onto reality. I think you even said at a certain point. You're not denying that Descartes was making an argument. So he's constantly strawmanning you, constantly misrepresenting what you in fact said as well. But no, this is not a deductively valid argument. No. That Dyer is making.
It absolutely is if you reify
Nope.
and restate. Yes, it is.
Nope, that's literally not what it is in logic. It's a kind of formal argument. What is it?
But that's not what this is. It does. That's irrelevant because it's not.
He's right.
I'm
That's
making
not.
a
That's not a.
tautological-
Not a
That's
formal
not what
argument.
this is.
That's what I was like cracking up there. It's like that's not this. I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's not a formal argument. What's a tautology?
All right, you know what? Let's just leave it there. I'm going to read the rest.
Yeah, no, he completely skipped his formal logic class. If he has a philosophy degree, and when I got a philosophy degree, they required me to not only take formal logic, but symbolic logic and more. But this guy apparently skipped all that in getting whatever degree he has. Because when you do get a degree in philosophy, they actually require you to study philosophy, figure out what these things actually mean, what the valid form of a syllogistic argument is, what the fallacies really are, what a tautology really is, and how it can and can't be used, etc. This guy was maybe he skipped that class. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure how you get a real philosophy degree by skipping that.
These Swan
I
Kelly
just want to
says
say one more thing.
no. You know what? Okay, very quickly. Go ahead
Yeah,
because we're never going
his
to get to
argument-
college
It's
if we
just-
don't. Just let him
argument
say
is
it.
that-
Just-
It's just something that states that it's true in all possible
Say
interpretations.
one last thing.
He
So-
Googled it.
so-
He Googled it. He
his
Googled
tautology to try and figure out what that's I think he did that in like 4 or 5 times in the debate where you can actually see him Googling things that he doesn't know. Like I did that. I showed a quote of him of Quine. He says that Quine says that logic can't be doubted. And I say, no, Quine literally says the opposite. And I quote it. And then he says, oh no, that's not what the 2 dogmas of empiricism are. And I asked him what the 2 dogmas are and he didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what are the 2 dogmas, Jay? And then for like the next minute, you can see him Googling the 2 dogmas to try and figure out what they are.
Right. I mean, he's not familiar with the work of William Van Orman Quine, which is, again, required reading when you get a philosophy degree, at least after the middle of the 20th century. Quine's work is required. In fact, the various approaches to the analytic synthetic dichotomy are necessary, and Quine is among the most important 20th century writers, whether you agree with him or not, one of the most important 20th century writers on that point, and he obviously is not familiar with him.
Is called the Cartesian circle. You can literally Google it. It's the definition of vicious circularity and doesn't work at all.
That's not a transcendental argument. That's a mischaracterization. It's not that. It's not a. It's not a
argument
Cartesian
you
circle.
just made.
All
That God justifies knowledge through the.
It's a transcendental argument. You don't know.
That's hilarious he's saying that now because he admitted to making a circular argument earlier.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, the Cartesian circle is like a very specific rebuttal of how Descartes uses the cogito to justify God. So he's saying that he gets the conclusion that I think, therefore I am, and then he uses that to prove God, which is the circularity, which causes circularity. And that specific argument that he uses is called the Cartesian circle, going from cogito to God. And that's the part I'm referencing here, is that the method Descartes uses to start with, if knowledge exists, therefore God, is the same argument Jay's using, the tag argument. It's like the foundation of the tag argument.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Descartes is, like I say, a super genius compared to this guy. And we know,
well, I mean, an ant is a super genius compared to
but one can rationally object to Descartes' methodology, Cartesian methodology, but this guy is Descartes would be embarrassed by this guy even having anything that even structurally sounds similar to him. Look, I'm an atheist, so I reject all those kind of approaches to this kind of argumentation. Frankly, the better arguments, are more like design arguments, because they do ground themselves in observation. For all the fallacies that have been pointed out in, say, design arguments. But that's infinitely superior in my mind. As fallacious as it is, it's infinitely. See, look at a tree. Who could make a tree? At a certain level of scientific ignorance, you could say, well, the classic way it's put, if you find a pocket watch along the road, you wouldn't think that the pocket watch spontaneously assembled and could tell time. And similarly, you look at a human eye or you look at a tree, that's got a lot more credibility. There must be some intelligent creator behind it. That's got a lot more persuasiveness, to my way of thinking, than some kind of transcendental argument of this kind. That strikes me as game playing.
So I found the Cartesian circle is founded on the wiki. It's Descartes' justification for why we have clear perceptions of reality is because he believes there is a God that exists that's a non-deceiver, and then his proofs to show that God exists come from his clear perceptions of reality. So he says the reason we have clear perceptions is because God exists, who is not a deceiver, to give them to us, and then he uses those clear perceptions to prove God exists. Now, I'm not sure if you caught this, but that's the tag argument. Knowledge exists. God is the precondition for knowledge. Therefore, God exists.
Right.
What that is, it's not the same thing as a tautology or a Cartesian circle.
It's literally, it is. You could just
No, it's
Google
not.
it.
All right, we're just gonna call Tom.
This is a different form from a tautology.
We gotta call
You see this
Tom.
form. He doesn't know the form of arguments. He doesn't know what
All
that
right,
is.
let's keep going. Swan Kelly says, Tom, Jesus loved you and died for your sins. Tiger King 10 says, Tom, are you special needs?
All right.
Okay. That more characterizes it: the insults and the abuse and the interruptions. That you played the full part of what is the most substantive element. I put myself through this entire thing for you today, so that the viewers out there don't have to go through the full thing. But if you caught just that bit, and you got all the substance you're going to get from Dyer on the point, really.
Yeah, I think we'll close here. And before I close, I just want to let everybody know that I will be live tomorrow. Professor Dave Explains will be joining me, in which we're going to cover more in depth the anti-Semitic crap coming out of Jay Dyer's mouth, and also how Jay just dodges everything that Dave pointed out in his videos, dodges and deflects. So yeah, that'll be all covered tomorrow. And with that being said, Tom, James, thank you both for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I also like to give a shout out to the new project I'm working on. I wrote a model of morality, and if anybody has a chance to check it out, churchofthebpw.org. Give the story a read. Let me know what you think.
I'll be sure to put the link in the description below after the live stream concludes. I also have a link to Tom's YouTube channel will be down there in the description below in the pinned comment as well. Thank you both again. Hello viewers, thanks for watching this video from the History Valley YouTube channel. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if any of you wish to further support this channel, please consider checking out this channel's Patreon page and becoming a patron. And or donate through PayPal or through Super Chat during your live stream. Thank you.